Hello, I'm your host, Giselle Gamby, and this is the Intuitive Pool Podcast, where together we'll embrace the plans we did not make yet, unfold businesses and lives that are so much greater in wealth in all ways than any business or life plan could ever achieve. My wish is that you make intuition your most trusted advisor. So buckle up, get present, and let's go. Hello, and welcome back to our beautiful, loyal listeners. And if we have some new listeners, I welcome you in with wide open arms to a pretty spectacular interview with Luisa Carel. Luisa is a global passion ambassador and a host of Passion Harvest. Passion Harvest is an internationally acclaimed interview YouTube podcast series that showcases thought leaders across the globe to inspire others to live a passionate life, questioning the way we do life, questioning the way we live life, questioning the way we move forward in our life. So it's just a perfect match for the Intuitive Pool podcast. With a significant and growing following and requests from Luisa's listeners, she also offers her bespoke Passion Mastery program, creating a unique vision for your life and intuitive readings, which is pretty spectacular, I must say, exploring the multidimensional realms of your soul. Luisa is super duper connected. Luisa is a soul connector who lives and works from the intuitive realm, where she can see into future memories of her life and that of her coaching clients. She does not need to know the human story as a reference point for this seeing. This intuitive ability has clients who have not yet been able to fully surrender to their own intuitive impulses, despite years of trying, the freedom to finally live a life of meaning, purpose, and passion. Luisa works on the premise that passion and freedom are our birthright, that passion is our internal guidance system, and obstacles can be seen as growth. Moving through challenges are life lessons, a story, the creating framework of your personality. She says, I truly believe that by understanding and realizing your passions, you have the ability to change your life. Alleluia, sister. As Luisa reads her clients' energetic and soul blueprint, she knows that in turn, her clients will not only change their lives, but the lives of others. Welcome, and thank you so much for agreeing to do this episode with me, Luisa.
Oh my gosh, thank you. And I'm so honored to be on the show, and what a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much.
For once, somebody's interviewing you rather than
I know. And I have to say, I think you're amazing too. So I'm really excited to be here today.
Thank you. So as I said, you're someone who, probably out of all the people in my life, really are such an immaculate demonstration of someone who absolutely follows the intuitive pools in your life. You have so many different examples. You are so courageous in just surrendering to what your intuition says. And I'm really hoping that what will be activated by people listening to you and your story is that they will have the courage to finally follow their intuitive pools. So that's my intention, and we'll see what else happens.
Okay. I try my best to follow my intuition, like everyone. Fear comes up, but following, we're always being guided by our guides, by our angels, always. And I promise you, if you follow that, you will be rewarded, not necessarily monetary riches, which is amazing, but in internal riches. We come here to be the fullness, the full expression, to sing our heart's truest song and see our heart's fullest colors. And you do this by following your intuition. Fear comes up for me as well. And I was speaking before this episode, it does, but sometimes fear is great. You can be grateful for fear, but also put it to the side. It's trying to keep you safe. And oftentimes when I thought I've overcome my fears and I'm feeling safe and great, more comes up. But when we can move through that fear, life unfolds in the most magical, incredible ways. And we do this by, you can have fear, but it's still exciting. And there's a difference. Most fears are paper tigers, and they're things that we're learned. These are part of our soul themes that we need to learn. For example, loving yourself, overcoming certain challenges, feeling your worthiness. And that can be directed in many forms, mostly in the creative realm. Everything happens within inside in a non-physical dimension first, so thought before form. So everything that's created on our external reality starts with our internal landscape. I don't even know if that answered your question, but I just went off on a tangent.
Well, absolutely, because I love the way I've always said this to you. Well, I don't know if I've said this to you, but I know that I've thought this about you. When you speak, you speak like you're singing a song.
Oh.
It's like I'm hearing poetry. It's like just through the vibration of your, and I know that your listeners have said this to you as well, just through the vibration of your communication, there's a transformation, there's an energetic transfer that happens. So it's absolutely perfect. And one of the things that I also love about you is that you are also so real with your humanity. Like, never do I see you hide or pretend that you don't have fears and doubts. And I know through Luisa TV, when you're not interviewing your thought leaders, but you're sharing from yourself, you're sharing not only your intuition, but you're also sharing your greatest fears and doubts, etc. So it's something that's really endearing to me. And so I think that's where I'm going to start.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what has been the greatest intuition that you have followed that has been the greatest risk to your ego? If you can think of what that might be.
First of all, there's so many, but can I just say something about what you said before? What I've come to understand, and I'll go back to that incredible question that could open up so many doors, but yes, I have many future memories. There's many probabilities of reality. When you think about something, you're creating it. And that relates to the question of time that I'll talk about in a minute. But, the only thing that is certain in life is that everything changes. The commonality of life is that everything grows. Nothing remains stagnant. Who wants to remain stagnant and not live their best life, their fullest life that they can? And unfortunately, we spoke about fear and conflict and contrast. It'll happen to all of us in our lives, like when we die, and that's going to happen to everyone. But oftentimes we grow the most through adversity. I don't welcome it, but when it comes that I hadn't predicted, I know this is an opportunity for growth. So each moment, each minute of every day is an opportunity for growth. This is the commonality of life. So I just wanted to say that, and I'm so sorry. Back to your question.
Perfect.
Something about it was about the ego.
Yeah, what's been the great that if you can? I mean, it's a hard question, so I apologize for giving you a hard question right up front. But you're someone who has followed the intuitive pull time and time and again. So the question is there an intuition that was such a risk to your ego that you said yes to and surrendered and followed?
Great question. Now I know how my guests feel. I would probably have to say, oh my gosh, there's so many. The one that comes to mind is leaving a very unhappy marriage and moving through a career that wasn't serving me. And by the time that happened, my ego had completely dissolved. I'm sometimes a slow learner, but I was in such a way of life that wasn't working for me, that the ego had disappeared, because I know with everything, whatever it is, even now, when we can surrender, when we can surrender to a power higher than ourselves, when we can surrender to God or divine or the universe, we can plan and make plans and do Excel spreadsheets of our life. But that doesn't always work out. And there's a higher power that is always leading us on the right path, always trying to offer us insights for the right path. So the ultimate removal of the ego is saying, I can't do this alone. I need your help. Please help me. And I guess surrendering is the most powerful, people call it bending the knee, and it happens more and more to me. knowing that everything happens in divine timing. But in regards to ego, I could talk about my marriage. I was in a very unhappy marriage, which lasted many years, and I have beautiful children. I realized that, the ideal life that I wanted, the mother and the father and the 2 kids and the beautiful house, I just wasn't happy, and the relationship wasn't working. And I was in a career, a great career, a corporate career. I had a beautiful corner office. And I think this is years ago, I started listening to Abraham Hicks because I knew that I needed to change my life. And the big change from, if this can relate to the ego or fear or all this noise the noise chatter in our head, I realized that I created my reality. I created this. And if I created it, I could also get out of it. And the big change, the big shift that occurred for me was to realize, I think I wrote it down one day in bold on a piece of paper, I am worthy. And the big shift was to go out of victim consciousness, which means that you do, for the most part, I do believe they're pre-birth plans. Maybe we can talk about pre-birth plans in another episode, or soul contracts, but I was not a victim. Not all of this was happening to me. Many times in our life, things, yes, they are unfair or mean or unjust or not right, not kind, but I wasn't a victim anymore. And the big thing is no one, and this was a big going out of victim consciousness, I guess that's a term that people use, but relying on something external to you to please you, to make you happy, expecting events, or particularly people. Quite often we rely on them to fill us with joy, fill us with happiness, fill us with wholeness. And when I realized that I was the only one that could do that for myself, that really, really changed everything. And no longer did I rely on people or places or events to please me, because I decided I would choose how to think and to feel and to be. So long story short, I'll just give you my office story. I call it the gum leaf. So I was in an unhappy marriage, listened to Abraham Hicks, and I tried everything I could do to be happy. Fake it till you make it. And, we live in a magnetic universe. Thoughts are energetic and feelings are the magnetic. So the more we feel something, we bring it forth at a more rapid rate into our consciousness. And as a result, our consciousness creates our reality. So I looked for everything I could to feel good and positive and happy, and tried to look for the good in everything. I knew my marriage wasn't going to work. I knew I wasn't going to stay in this career, but I thought the problem is many people make the mistake of, I'll change careers, or I'll find another boyfriend, or I'll move countries and that will make me happy. But you're basically taking the problem with you. You need to solve the problem first, and then you can move on with freedom and passion and joy. So anyway, just briefly, I was in my office many days, and I started going out at lunch, getting out of the office and walking across to the park across the road, and sitting on the park, kicking off my high heels, and I ate my lunch. And I realized it was the happiest time of my day. I started meditating. And at this point in my life, I was so worried what other people thought. And I remember I'd look up to the sunshine and close my eyes. I was actually meditating, but I thought if any of my co-workers saw me, they wouldn't think I was too weird. So that I pretended that the sun was in my eyes. And then I remember I looked down, and it was really a profound moment. It was the most simplest of moments. And I saw a gum leaf, and I picked up the gum leaf, and it just reminded me of that one of the only times of my day that was so happy. And I went back to my beautiful corner office, and I hid it behind the monitor, again, in case people thought I was weird and why would I take a gum leaf into the office? Well, long story cut short, the universe has a incredible way of pushing you, kicking and screaming, because sometimes we would never have jumped. So I'm utterly grateful. I was retrenched from the role, and I packed up my corner office. There was not much there. I think I left with one little USB memory stick. And as I was leaving the office, I looked behind the computer monitor, and there was that gum leaf. And by this time it was dried and shriveled, and I received a very, very clear message. It came to me through telepathy from my guides or from a higher power that said, if you had stayed, you would have ended up like this.
Mm.
And I was filled with joy. But again, fear always creeps in. I wasn't as strong then as I am now. And I remember opening the office door and my hands were shaking and I had no idea what I was going to do. I was terrified of being unmarried and poor, and so many thoughts went through my head. And what was I going to do? But I walked out the door with my hands shaking and I made a promise to the universe that day. And I promised from that day on, I would do what filled me with joy, do what allowed me to follow my passions. And I'd never wake up and drag my weary body to work if I wasn't passionate about it. And my life changed since then. It took a while, and that's how Passion Harvest was created. Because I wanted to share, I wanted to grow spiritually. I was fascinated by that. And I thought, I don't have enough time to read all the books. What about if I start interviewing people? And, the purpose of life is joy and to give service to others. So not only have I created this great community, but I get to share this knowledge with other people. And I can't believe my life. I'm so, so grateful.
So I never knew the story of how Passion Harvest actually was
okay.
conceived. I didn't realize it was because you said to yourself, I don't have time to read all the books. So how about I just interview some remarkable people and learn from that? What an incredible conception.
I needed to fast track.
And so you did. And so let's go to
even though there is no time it is my belief there is no time. There's past, present, and future, and what we identify in our humanness as time is the passing of events, but there is no beginning and there is no end. And if you look on a multidimensional level, our soul cannot be constrained by days or weeks or months or even centuries. Everything's happening right now. So you create in the moment of now, but it's my belief that if you were look from above at space and time, your life that has already played out in multiple realities, parallel, multiple versions of you, all your past lives, as we term them, are just happening at a point in space and time.
This is something that I feel you have expertise around. I know you speak a lot about time, and you speak about a concept that I'd never heard of before until I met you, which is future memories. Can you talk to us about what you understand future memories to be, and also give us an example of a future memory that you have gone into and have now lived out?
Sure. I actually did a Luisa TV episode that I released this morning on time and future memories. First of all, we create our future by our thoughts. And I gave some tips how to connect with your future memories. I thought back how it happened to me. And at the time, I didn't ask for it. So first, I guess the guiding principle is if you can remember the past, you can remember the future. You're just accessing memories from the future. We're taught that we live in a linear fashion. That is not my belief. So it's really about trusting yourself, trusting that this can occur, visualizing the experience and feeling it with all of your body, like you would remember going to the beach and feeling the wind and the sun and the water and the sand on your toes. Live it like that. And then the final one is surrender, because not everything always happens the way we have planned. But again, this goes back to living inspiration and living alignment. I guess with the future memories that first happened for me, I was walking in the city in Sydney. Something happened to me, and I feel in some way that I opened a portal, a dimension of consciousness, a future memory. And it was so real. And again, there's no concept of time. It's like when you have a dream, the dream could last for weeks, but you're actually just having it overnight, or multiple dreams. But I was transported to Europe. I was in a black car. And the first time it happened, I was so disorientated that I actually thought I'd been abducted. until I came back to myself as Luisa. I couldn't believe it. And this vision happened again and again. And I got to know the person I was in the car. So I was a soul. I was an energetic being. I didn't see my physical form. I knew it was Luisa. It was not a past life. I've experienced many past lives, as we term them. But I knew it was a future vision of me. It's not something I had experienced in this lifetime. I knew it was a future version of a vibration, a possible reality of me. And I grew to know the man. I knew it was a man.
Sitting next to you.
Sitting next to me, always driving the car.
Uh-huh.
And the interesting thing is, when I look back, I don't know how I knew it was in Europe. I knew we were traveling through lots of trees, and I'm in Australia at the moment, but definitely I think about it, that the steering wheel was on the left-hand side, as it is in Europe. And this happened time and time again. Sometimes he even picked me up from the airport, and I got to know this man. I felt I knew him. I don't know how this happened. It would happen sometimes 2 or 3 times a month. And then eventually we got to the house. And then the next time the visions happened, premonitions, I call them future memories. They were realer than as I'm talking to you now. I positioned my soul, my energetic being, this sounds strange, in a cupboard, in a wardrobe at the top of a shelf. And I could go, but there was unlimited capacity for exploration. So even though I knew I was positioned in this cupboard, I could still be there, but bilocate to any area of the house, and I could see it. I could see the actual house. And I remember this man, I called him Edward, opening all these doors and cupboards looking for me. He didn't consciously know we were having this experience, but I knew he was looking for me. And one day, after probably 8 times this happened over a couple of months, I was intrigued and fascinated. I don't know how specifically this happened, how this portal opened. He looked up at me, and our eyes locked, and I knew then that he would find me. I just knew. I didn't know how or when or where or whatever form that may take. And then it happened another 4 times that I was transported to the house. I didn't choose to do this. I wasn't a voyeur. It just occurred. There was a magnetic pull. And I remember each time I go back, he'd be sleeping. I would kiss him on the cheek and say, Edward, come and find me. It was just so real. And I received lots of emails, from wonderful, wonderful viewers who watched the show. And I received this email and said, love your interviews. I'd like to help you on your quest. Can we meet on Zoom for a chat? And a few other things. And at first I thought, how rude. I'm not on a quest. But I do believe in synchronicities and signs. And I'd just done an interview with Diana Durham, the quest for the Holy Grail, which is the fundamental meaning of universal truth, which is love in essence. We are love. We come here for love. Everything's about love. And I thought, maybe I should do this. And I woke up the next morning, didn't sleep all night. I thought, mate, is this person bad? Why would I even consider meeting some stranger on Zoom? And I asked the most stupid question of all. I said, this is absolute. I asked it to my guides. I said, is this Edward? And it came back. I received the answer as yes. And I think I even swore. I thought, oh my God. So I asked, sometimes I don't trust myself and I need validation. I asked about 20 more times during that day. And it constantly came back as yes. So I agreed to meet him on Zoom a week later. And I thought, again, I was still in my worrying about what people thought. I thought, I can't tell this man that I've been meeting him for the last year and a half in the non-physical realm in a future memory. He's going to think I'm so weird. And I was so worried and I was terrified, as you know.
Yes, with your shot of vodka sitting beside you.
Oh, God. And so I thought, I'll just see how it goes. So we had a great conversation. And I said to him at the end, I think I was stumbling and muttering and built up the confidence because I chose love over fear. And again, I always say to my clients as well, always ask yourself, what would love do in this situation? Always. ask yourself, what would love do? And I don't necessarily mean the romantic love. I mean the pure, divine, universal love. And so I told him the story. I don't think I breathed. And he said something along the lines of, that's the most amazing story I have ever heard. And if I could jump on a plane right now, I would, but it was during COVID. So it was interesting. We spoke for a year and a half. He's actually American, but he lives in France. And we're best friends. And I've just spent the last year in France. It's kind of incredible. And on a side note, I'm also tracking the dragon lines, which is fascinating. And I'd had that calling in France and Germany. Amazingly, his property, actually, the dragon line runs through his property. And I've seen many other things, but I'll just quickly finish up this future memory. I've seen our life before birth, which was fascinating. And I knew he died when he was 3. I was his spirit guide. He confirmed that he did. And my mother had several abortions, and I chose to come into this life. I do believe we had a pre-birth soul contract to find each other. And life doesn't always eventuate as you envisioned, but I feel I'm pretty intuitive. So I stay true to my intuition. But the most incredible thing is I found my home. You see, I went to this region in France, southwest France, and I've never felt so alive in my life. I've never felt so whole, and I've never felt so complete. It's a simple region. It's the apple growing region of France, and no one speaks English there. And even if they choose to, they don't. So I have to keep practicing my French. But it's magnificent for me. It lights up my soul. It lights up my heart. And each day I'm there, I thank God. And I'm so grateful to wake up. Something about the light. It's soft. And I love Australia, but I also did a crossing with Australia. I asked the guardians of certain regions in Australia that I may be able to leave my contract in Australia and move to my soul's home. And I know I've had many lives there, but it's like falling in love. You know, you can't order love like pizza. It's if we could choose who we'd fall in love with, sometimes it'd be amazing. But this place sets me on fire. It lights up my heart. It brings me the most incredible peace and joy. And having said that, we again, and I spoke about before, that you can't rely on geographical locations, but I also work with energy lines. And, you know, we all have a certain vibration, and particular geographical lines or geographical regions of the world, people flourish in them, or they don't flourish as much, depending on where they live. But this place is my soul's home, and it's magnificent. And I'm leaving again to move there full time in 4 weeks. I'm actually looking for a place to buy, and I'm terrified, and I'm utterly filled with excitement and the most profound joy, because I think for the first time, well, not the first time, but I would say for one of the first times in my life, I'm doing something for me. I'm wholly learning to love myself. And that's a term, learn to love yourself. And you're like, how do I do that? You give yourself gifts. And this is the greatest gift I can ever give to myself. And that's how I'm finding my wholeness. And this is how I'm learning to love myself. It might be irrational and a little bit crazy, and one might think it's spontaneous, but I don't have a choice. People who are living a full life don't always know what's coming around the corner. They can't see everything planned out, but they live with passion and purpose and joy, and believe that their future is going to be better than the past.
Louisa, you're so beautiful. This, I know, I did an episode, an interview with Dr. Carol Haddad and another lady called Natalie Symes. And I knew that in that episode, it served like an energetic prescription. And I feel the same thing here with you, with a different nuance. So the energetic prescription with Dr. Carol Haddad and Natalie Symes was more of from a health point of view, but here it's more from a loving yourself and giving yourself gifts that only you can give, and in a way that you have no choice to give, if you have promised, like you promised yourself, to live a life filled with joy. and to choose divine universal love over fear. I feel like the listeners are sitting here. It's almost like a meditation. It's
that's so beautiful.
It's almost like there's a portal. There's a portal that's opening here where people are being invited, and I'm sure it's already happened, to go into their future memories. And I have a feeling that for some people, the trajectory of their lives will change because they're in the presence of you right now.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much. And this is kind of also the work I do in my passion mastery, which is amazing. And I love doing it with clients.
So I'm going to put all those details in the show notes. So if you feel called to work with Luisa, I cannot encourage you enough.
Or have a look at over 250 incredible thought leaders and spiritual teachers across the globe that they're really
your
inspiring.
Your YouTube podcast series is just enormous. Enormous. I'm a little tiny little fish in the sea.
No, you're not. I think you're amazing.
I want to ask you about, I know that a lot of your interviews are to do with near-death experiences. What is the connection between the subject of near-death experiences and you living this multidimensional life where you have so surrendered and continue to surrender to future memories? What's the connection there? Because I feel like there's a connection there.
Well, I guess it opens you up to consciousness. You know, it really expands on the thought that we do not die. Consciousness extends beyond the physical body. There is a much greater dimension, universe than we perceive with our physical eyes, what we term as our five senses. There's so much more to us there. And I guess the connection, gosh, that's a good question. I always say anything is possible and everything is probable. You know, we're limited by what we limit ourselves with. You know, whatever you believe, you are correct. So when you confine yourself, when you constrain yourself of what you can do, then you are correct. But if you open up to the unlimited you, the multidimensional you, then wonders abound.
Yes.
There's also, again, for me, which has been reinforced, is that there is we are all interconnected energetically. I see it as like little thin webs, spider webs almost, but there is a greater power of unconditional love. Yes. We come here, we come here in pure love, and fear is what we learn. And I guess, yeah, the future memories are opening possibilities and portals and dimensions. And there is so much more of universal truth, so much more to explore with our creativity. And I don't necessarily mean painting, but with our thought of our childlikeness, our creativity, our potentials. There is so much more for each and every one of you.
Yes, I heard a beautiful expression the other day that went something like this: let the finite be touched by the infinite.
That's beautiful.
Which is who you are and how you live your life. And I also feel like that's the connection between, I mean, you actually answered the question straight away when I said, what's the connection between near-death experiences and your ability to connect into future memories? And you said, well, consciousness extends beyond the physical body, and there it is in both those aspects.
Even after death as well, or what we term as death, or when the physical body, when we transition.
Yes. Well, you're reminding me actually now of a conversation that we had when I think you went and did a yoga class, and then all of a sudden you connected in with, I think it was the grandmother of the yoga teacher.
Oh, right.
Remember that?
That happens to me a lot now.
Oh, okay. Well, can you talk about that, or talk about another example of where your consciousness has extended beyond the physical body? I'm even thinking about the horse. You knew that the horse's leg was.
Yes.
You were in Australia and you connected with the horse in France, and you knew that the horse was not well.
Gosh, how does it happen? I'm just careful with my energy, so I don't always let it in. I also do intuitive readings. I don't do them so much anymore because I'm pretty busy. To connect with a person, to connect with energy, I believe the greatest powers we have are love and intention, and to believe in yourself, number one. Gosh, it's happened to me so many times. I knew, for example, Edward, we'll call him Edward, sent me a photo once of a beautiful scene with horses. And I knew that the horse, one of the horses in the picture, was hurt. It came to me in dreams through the night. And he confirmed, yes, it had got in a fight. In regards to the yoga teacher, there's been a few. Sometimes they come to me all different times. I mean, my sister who's transitioned has come to me. My mother passed last year, which was a bit of a shock. I'll give you an example of that. I didn't have the best relationship with my mother. There's always a contrast. I didn't think we did, but actually we had a great relationship because everyone is a mirror or reflection of what you need to work on. And I was devastated when she died. And I remember crying out to her and saying, please forgive me for not having the best relationship with you. And she very clearly came to me. This is 3 or 4 days after her death. And she said, there's nothing to forgive. The only person you need to forgive is yourself. And she came to me a few other times after she passed. She hasn't come so much anymore. I think she's moved from this, what we term as the physical plane. But she came as a collection of energies. It wasn't, if we would term in our human terms, it wasn't just her. It was a collection of energies, but I knew her. I knew it was her. And she said to me that she died because she died of a heart attack very suddenly. It wasn't expected. And I also thought, what a great way to go. I wouldn't want to be sick for years. But she said, I chose my point of death. And everyone that was impacted by that has an opportunity to grow. And they can make a choice. Freedom is our birthright. It really, really is. And she said, not only you as her daughter, but every single person, whether even if it's the person at the health food shop, every single person was impacted by that, by her death in some way, whatever that means to them. And the universe had timed it, like all of our deaths, all of our passing, so precisely for everyone. I mean, what an incredible thought that her death, who would have impacted, it had a ripple out effect and would have impacted thousands of people, in the community, that each person had an opportunity to learn from this experience. And the divine had chosen that exact point in time. And also when they received the messages. Having said that, I was still in grief. I remember lying in bed one morning and it was about 9 o'clock. And I thought, I can't wait till it's nighttime. I don't want to get up. Like, I just want the day to be gone. Grief is an incredible thing. I remember my hands. I made coffee one morning and my hands couldn't stop shaking, how everything's interconnected and how it affected my physical body. And I was lying in bed. I still remember this day. I think it was a Thursday. And she came, probably communicated to me for the last time. And she said 3 very important things. She said, everything is going to be okay. You are absolutely loved. And everything happens in divine timing. It was so clear. And after, people have also spoken to me about this because I could feel for days after she passed this tingling in my body, these sensations like little light particles. And I understood that it was almost like an energetic upgrade, a death blessing she was giving me, a death gift from her non-physical dimension, from her non-physical self. She was sending my DNA, my cells, energy. And it's interesting when I spoke about this because so many people have said, I experienced that too. And I didn't know what it was. I thought it was grief, but I knew it was energy. It doesn't mean I didn't experience grief. I have a different view on death than many people. But she gave me a beautiful gift.
I love that. And it also is so connected to all your conversations around death experiences, because if we only orientate from the physical plane, death means loss. But orientating from the multidimensional plane, death actually, there's so many blessings in your mum's words. There's so many gifts. So it's so, yes, we can't bypass our humanity, and we don't want to bypass our humanity because we came here to be human.
Yes.
So we're here to feel the feelings. And it's also so empowering to see the gift that death can bless us with. Yeah.
And grief is a powerful thing, and it's different for everyone, whether it's
Yes.
time frames or how deeply one goes into grief.
Yes. So, Luisa, thank you so much.
Oh my God, it's been my pleasure.
I
I'm
want to
so
do this
excited.
again.
Whenever you want.
I think it's so gorgeous that we're sitting here on Zoom, even though the listeners won't see this, and we both got the microphone. And in fact, I even called you and I said, what microphone should I buy to do this podcast? And you said, buy a Blue Yeti microphone.
Did you get one?
To you. I did.
They're great.
So I love the three.
It's traveled all over the world with me. Yeah. So when we meet again, we'll just have to work out the time zones. But oh my gosh, I just love what you do. You're amazing. And thank you so much. And thank you to the listeners as well.
Yes,
thank you for listening.
Go and check Luisa's podcast YouTube series and also her passion mentoring. And as Luisa said, doesn't have a huge amount of time anymore to do intuitive readings, but you might be lucky. You might be able to fit into Luisa's diary, and she's pretty incredible. So all those details will be in the show notes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Luisa. Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh my gosh, I so enjoyed interviewing Luisa. I spoke about the interview being an energetic prescription to loving yourself and giving yourself gifts that only you can give yourself, backed by the promise that maybe you've made with the universe to live a life of joy. So I'm curious how this interview, which felt like a meditation to me, how it impacted you. What future memories perhaps were catalyzed by listening to Luisa? Please let me know. There are different ways of connecting with me. They are in the show notes, so your preference of choice. And of course, in the show notes are Luisa's details. If you would love to connect with her, if you would love to connect with me, you will know how to find me through the different ways of connecting that are written down in the show notes. Thanks for listening. Until next time. I'm excited actually next time, because I'm going on retreat with my coach. And so I know I will be juiced up for the next recording of the next few episodes. Ciao, ciao.